You're fabulous. So today we are taking a leap of faith. And this whole month actually is about bridging the gap. And we'll talk a little bit about that too. But when you take a leap of faith, you have to step out into an unknown. Because if it wasn't on faith, you would know exactly what you're doing. And some people don't take the leap of faith because they want to stay safe where they are. How many like being safe where they are? And how many like that leap of faith and wondering what's going on? Yeah, you like both of it because it's part of life that we have this opportunity to do both of those. So there is a book that I've been reading that I really like, Sandra Ann Daly. She wrote the book Successfully Midair, which is how you live in taking that leap. Because the leap involves an unknown, the gap part of the leap. And that's what she talks about in there. So she gives some great hints on what we do. And Dr. Ernest Holmes said, let us feel that our purposes are animated and inspired from on high, and then let us go forth and make our dreams come true in human experience. So we can have these dreams. These dreams are of desire is of the Father. The Father is that divine intelligence that lives as us. So our dreams are part of allowing that divine presence to manifest through us. And sometimes the dreams, they make your hands sweat. My teacher, Peggy Bassett, years ago, she said, if your hands aren't sweating, your dream isn't big enough. That's a good one, isn't it? So, also, the German philosopher and poet Goethe says, the highest and most excellent thing in man is formless, and we should guard against giving it shape in anything less than noble dress. We have within us the capacity to make the formless into form, and he's saying, make sure that the form that you make it into is something that's noble, that's worthy. Actually, there are a few people I'm quoting today that talk about that idea of making sure your idea is big enough, not settling in life. And sometimes we go through different periods. There will be something guiding us and moving us forward. In the 1970s, my sister Luzette lived in Santa Monica, California with her 2 kids. And I went out there because there was something within me that had been taking the classes and was like, let's just see what it's like to go to the school of ministry. So I go out to Santa Barbara and I stayed with my sister for a week, and I drove in. At that time, they only had one school of ministry in this whole country, and it was in LA. And I would drive from Santa Monica into the school of ministry, and there was so much traffic. There were so many people. There was so much concrete. And I'm like, I don't think I can do this. Besides, where would I go work? Because I have to work to create money, and I have to rent a place. And all of a sudden, there was all these obstacles in my mind. And so I went home and said, well, I guess I'm not called to the school of ministry. Maybe that was just an idea with no value. And so I let that whole idea go. About a year later, I go out to Center for Spiritual Living, had a big conference every year in Asilomar in Monterey, California. So I went out to Asilomar. I drove here from St. Louis. I was a member of this church in the 70s. And I drove out there. It was in 1977 with 2 women. And we get to Asilomar. And that night, a lot of ministers were standing around. They were going to go out. And a minister came up to me and said, would you like to go to dinner with me? And I didn't really want to, but I was pretty naive, and I'm in my 20s, and I didn't want to hurt his feelings. I said, I would love to, but let's have a party. And let's invite some other people and make it into a party. He's like, fine. And so there was a guy that when I had walked into the main room, I saw a cord between this one minister and me. It was a gold cord. I thought, well, I got to take him to dinner to see what this gold cord's about. So I invited him to come to dinner, and he sat next to me, and we talked the whole night. Luckily, there was like 5 people, so my date didn't feel left out because there were other people. And it just so happens he was the minister in Seattle, Washington. 3 months later, I moved to Seattle and I married him. A year later, the dean of the School of Ministry, who had been my teacher here in St. Louis, Reverend Dr. Glenn Wood, he was the dean of the School of Ministry in LA. He moved from here out there, and he called one day and he said, could I bring the School of Ministry to Seattle? Now, what do you think I said? Of course. So Spirit had an idea, it had a vision through me, but it didn't unfold the way I thought it should, or would, or could. I had no idea that vision would bring a whole school of ministry to Seattle. I was the first graduating class, and Reverend Wood retired to Miami. So it's like he met me here in St. Louis. He was there at Asilomar when I met my second husband. He brought me to Seattle, and himself to Seattle, so that I could fulfill my vision of Spirit to be a minister. I mean, that's the way this stuff works. I couldn't do it on my own. It was too big of a challenge. How do you raise kids in LA driving back and forth in that crowded city? And it wasn't even that crowded in 1977. Well, to me it was. I mean, I came from St. Louis. You can get across this whole city in 20 minutes. You can get a couple blocks in 20 minutes out there. So that's like how the divine actually moved me. And it took a leap of faith for me to leave my comfortable little town of St. Louis, my beautiful house I had in Craig Woods over in Kirkwood, to move the children to Seattle and marry a guy I had known for 3 months. When I look back, I think that's not a leap of faith, that's stupidity. But it was a leap of faith, and it really did work for me, because that's the way Spirit brought it about. Whatever is your vision. I know we do a lot of this in January. Everybody comes up with an intention for the year. How many of you had an intention for the year? You were going to double your income, you were going to meet somebody that you loved forever, and you were going to lose 30 pounds, and you were going to write your book. We do all this in January, and now it's March. How many of you have started on your goals? Or how many of you are still doing them? See, a lot of times we have this, I'm going to do this in January. I do it every year. I set intentions. And sometimes in March I'm still doing them, and sometimes I'm not. But the Spirit within us, see, we're here not to change circumstances, not to change our outside life. We're here to change our inside life. So we have to begin changing our beliefs about ourselves. That takes a leap of faith, to change a belief that you've had for a long time about who you are. There was this guy that I know, when he was in his 30s, he had been studying this philosophy, and he remembered that when he was a child of 6, he was having a hard time reading a book in school, and the teacher said to him, "You will never be able to learn anything new because you can't read very well." And you know, that 6-year-old believed her. And until he was 30 years old, he believed he could not learn new things. And anytime he would start to learn new things, he'd have a problem. And at 30, he realized, I can't change that circumstance. I can't change that teacher. I can only change my belief about me. So he began having a mental equivalent of a person that can learn, a person that can leap, a person that knows more. And his whole life changed. Because up until then, he was a very wonderful, nice person with no self-esteem. And then all of a sudden, he became a very wonderful, nice person with amazing self-esteem that could go out and help other people raise their self-esteem. See, those are those messages that we get and we hold on to because we believed the wrong person. And they didn't have, a lot of 6-year-olds didn't have a Center for Spiritual Living to go to that said, hey, wait a minute, you're absolutely fabulous. The power of the divine is within you. Whatever you want to attempt, you can. You can leap. You can create wondrous things. So a minister friend of mine would always say, when one door closes, another one opens. But the hallway can be a real bitch. And that's where we get stuck. Because I say that a lot. You know, when one door closes, another opens. And when one window closes, another opens. But we got to learn to navigate the hallway. Actually, it reminds me of a little story about this little boy. And he was at church with his mother, and the minister was going on and on and on. And finally he said, "Oh, I have to get this right, because if I don't, it won't make any sense whatsoever." And he said, "Without you, dear God, we are but dust." And the little boy yelled, "Mommy, what is but dust?" I know, I don't know why, but that just struck me as funny. Because as kids, we interpret things wrong. We make up our own ideas. And we're confused, and quite often we don't ask what that means. What if that little boy had have said to the teacher, "What do you mean I'll never be able to learn? I'm just having problems today. Doesn't mean tomorrow." See, if we learn to ask. And then the leap before we think about it, taking that leap of faith, is sometimes the gap is known as a grand adventure in purpose. Gap, grand adventure in purpose. It could be scary, and yet what we do in the gap is really important. So we have to have faith. And so this is the definition of faith. Faith is knowing that as you step off the cliff, one of two things will happen. Either the ground will rise up to meet you, or you will spread wings and fly. That's faith. And especially when you're taking that leap of faith. And there's also the poem you may have heard by a French poet. "Come to the edge of the cliff," he said. "We can't. We're afraid." "Come to the edge of the cliff," he said. "We can't. We're afraid. We'll fall." "Come to the edge of the cliff," he said. And so we came. He pushed, and we flew. That's what happens when we let go of our fear. So the three things that Sandra Daly in her Successfully Midair talks about. And the first one is to connect regularly, daily, with your vision, which is your source of motivation. Daily with that vision. Where I place my attention, I am placing my intention. So that leap of faith requires action. It means you have to do something. So where are you putting your attention? On what you want? What you'd like to have in your life? What you want you to be? You know, so often we want to just change circumstances out there. And you can't change circumstances and have a leap of faith. The only thing you can actually change is your inside beliefs about you or about circumstances. About your whole life. Do you know you could actually change your belief about your whole life? That's what mental equivalent is. It's having a mental equivalent of what you think and what you feel and what you can see yourself doing. That's a mental equivalent. If you every day woke up and wrote it down, or looked at it, or read it, or said it, that mental equivalent would have to come true. You know, every day in our center in Scott Hall, we have an AA meeting that meets like from 6 to 7 every single day. And I so admire that group of people because they consistently every day get up and say, "Today I'm doing something about a physical issue I have in life or a mental issue I have." And they do something about it. They take action. I mean, there's lots of people that come into that room in Scott Hall. I don't get up that early to come over here and see them. But some people, Doug has seen them. Larry has seen them on the little camera as they walk in the door. Oh, it's 7 to 8, not 6 to 7. Oh, maybe I could make that one. But I admire people that take the action they need to take. What is it that you've wanted to change in your life? Have you wanted to give up smoking? No, I won't say that because some of my best friends are smokers. Have you wanted to give up drinking? No, never mind. Some of my best friends drink. You want to give up sugar? Yeah, I gave up sugar. No, that's okay. I mean, is there something in your mind that will make you healthier and happier if you didn't do it? Does anybody have something like that in their life? Think about your life. Maybe this is the day that you begin taking that leap in faith and change that behavior. You begin doing it in a different way. You begin eating in a different way. You begin meditating in a different way. You begin walking in a different way. You begin living your life differently. And that takes a leap of faith to live your life differently. Because it is hard to give up stuff that we have been addicted to or programmed to or think that we can't live without. But all of us have had something in our life that we have let go of and took a leap of faith and we flew. Our life changed. And that's what I'm saying. This whole month, Bridging the Gap, is taking that leap of faith, beginning that process. Thomas Thurman, who wrote The Inward Journey, we actually have, his name's Howard Thurman. We have some of his books in the bookstore. He's amazing. So this is one of my favorite quotes from him. So in the quietness of this place, surrounded by the all-pervading presence of God, my heart whispers, keep fresh before me the moments of my high resolve, that in fair weather or foul, in good times or in tempest, in the days when the darkness and the foe are nameless or familiar, I may not forget that to which my life is committed. Keep fresh before me the moments of my high resolve. I have always loved that passage. One time I bought all of his books because he inspired me so much. Keep fresh before me the moments of my high resolve. That means keep before me the knowing that whatever is happening in my life is for greater good. And that I can step forward knowing greater good is always, always available to me. And sometimes it's not the timing, it may be different. Like when I finally ended up in the School of Ministry, it was a different timing than I had thought, and I had given up the vision. Is there a vision that you've given up on that you hear and feel Spirit urging you? Do it. Do it. Take the leap. Do it. So sometimes we have to confront a challenge. You know, without challenges, we wouldn't have the same life. Challenges are part of the unfoldment of your life. Challenges are here. We need a challenge. Can you imagine how bored you would be going through life without any kind of challenge? Without that ability to strengthen your spiritual muscles? Well, she talks about in the book, you can live 90 years or you can live the same year 90 times. Tell that to your friends. You can live 90 years or you can live the same year 90 times. So it's time for us to be willing to expand. I want to live my life on the edge of my own becoming, not to be content in my own comfort zone. Can you imagine if you lived on the edge of your own becoming? Looking and seeing and taking that next step and jumping off the cliff when it arises. If an idea comes, what I know in my life, if an idea comes once, I might go, oh great, good idea. And I might even say, oh wow, I'm going to do that. But that idea never comes back and it wasn't mine to do. It was somebody else's to do. If an idea comes and then it comes back and then it comes back again, I go, oh wow, that must be mine to do. And it may be a challenge. Sometimes we have to go through those challenges to be alive. So the second thing that we want to do is create a list of small steps and take action today. Break it into small steps. Sometimes you have a big vision, but you don't know what the small steps are. Like Larry and we had this vision of living out by this lake, and it had a beach, and it had a clubhouse, and it had a pool, and we finally took a small step and went out and looked at property. I mean, we could talk about it forever, but we took that leap of faith to go out and see what's out there. Is it something we really want to do, or is it just a good idea? So you have to explore some of these things. And so Dr. Ernest Holmes talked about that we should swing from inspiration to action. We have to take action, or the inspiration will leave us. From prayer to performance. That's where the rubber meets the road. You know, you're going to pray about it, but are you going to do something about it? So, third, let go of that which is stopping you from moving forward. So what do you think is stopping you from moving forward? Is it a negative thought? Is there a negative friend that keeps you held down? Is there a negative belief that you've carried? Is there a fear that you can't do it? Is there just the fact that it's not yours to do? And that's okay, but listen for what is yours to do. Because something good and something great and something on purpose is coming through each and every person. Because that divine idea, that divine intelligence didn't bring us forth to just sit on a couch and eat bonbons. It brought us forth so that we could take a leap in faith, so that we could be more than we ever dreamed possible. And we start with changing our mind about who we are. So let me know as you change your mind. Let me know as you come up with, I'm being called to do this. Maybe you're being called to be a practitioner. Maybe you're being called to be a minister. I can't be the only one taking that leap of faith in this room. Well, Larry took it. How many else want to take that leap of faith? There's something calling you to be greater, a greater expression of who you are. So I will know with you that you can take the leap, and sometimes the only available transportation is a leap of faith. It's been said that even if you're on the right track, you'll get run over if you just sit there. Is that a good one? Yeah. So take the leap, and the ground will rise up to meet you, or your wings will come out and you will fly. I love you. Let's do it together. Let's say it together. Let's leap together. Let's leap together. And so it is. Namaste. Thank you. Thank you. Namaste. Thank you. And now we always have the opportunity. This is always another leap for some.